So yesterday I was in a situation where I witnessed something that I felt like was kind of an inappropriate situation or circumstance that was going on, and it just kind of led me to start thinking how people don't put enough boundaries up in their lives. And so I just thought that today it would be a good idea for us just to kind of talk through some different boundaries in marriage, and maybe even not just in marriage, but just boundaries in our lives, so that we can protect ourselves and protect our marriages. So stay tuned. Hey, I'm Rusty.
And I'm Heather.
And we're the Bryants, and this is the Redeemed Marriage Podcast.
We are here to encourage healthy marriages, strengthen wounded marriages, and begin the process of restoration to broken marriages.
We aren't licensed counselors, but we are a redeemed couple that loves the Lord and wants to help you journey through this messy, challenging, and fun part of life called marriage. Welcome back to another episode of the Redeemed Marriage Podcast. This is Rusty and Heather Bryant back with you today, and we're going to be talking about something that we've probably touched on several times. I mean, we've done 60-something episodes now, so I didn't take the time to go back and just look and think through every single one of them to see if we had done this specific topic, but I know that we've touched on it multiple times because it is such an important part of our story and an important part of marriage, and it should be an important part of everybody's story. So today we're going to talk about boundaries and why they should be there for your protection. They're not to harm you. They're not to hinder you. They're just to protect you and your marriage. And so we're going to talk through some of those things today. And, when I was thinking about boundaries, first of all, I started thinking, obviously the boundaries we go to first and think about first are the boundaries that you put to protect your marriage. And really, specifically, it would be to protect your marriage from falling into some sort of inappropriate relationship, right. Which could lead to an affair, emotional, physical, whatever. But there's also, there's tons of other things that you need boundaries for in your life. Can you think of some other? You're like, what? That's all I know.
Obviously I've been thinking through and focusing on the ones for marriage, but not just like you said, to keep you from falling into unfaithfulness or an inappropriate relationship, but also just from boundaries to keep you safe from becoming somebody that your partner doesn't desire, or specifically because we're believers, I want to be the godliest woman that I can be, as a mom, as a teacher, as a friend, as a wife, and I want to put up boundaries that will keep my heart pure in that way. Mm-hmm. So not just in marriage, but it is in marriage because I'm trying to be the person that I should be in marriage. Right. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So even like boundaries for yourself, those help protect your marriage, even though they're not specifically for your marriage and unfaithfulness and all of that.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Or did I just
I just think it's a big, no. I just think it's this big, huge topic, though, that, we don't have time to talk about all the different boundaries. There's actually, Henry Cloud does a great series of books on boundaries. And, there's boundaries that he has a book that's just boundaries. Then he has one that's on boundaries for marriage and boundaries and kids and, all this kind of stuff. So there's a lot of, I'm thinking of all the stuff that maybe doesn't even necessarily have to do specifically with like protecting yourself from inappropriate relationships, but like
work boundaries,
time, the amount of time, the amount of TV you watch. You got in-laws and family, and the just having boundaries of how much people are going to suck the life out of you.
Yeah, but name one of them that doesn't come back to affecting your marriage.
Yeah. And they do affect your marriage. And I think that's what I'm saying is all of those, yes, those are all marriage things, but they're not all things that are protecting you from potentially having an affair.
Right.
And I'm not, and this is not just, hey, we want you to put all these boundaries up so that you don't have an affair. it is that. But there's so many people out there that their marriages are in such a place that, like, that's not what they're thinking about.
Sure,
They're not thinking,
sure.
oh, no, if we
Yeah.
don't do these things, we're going to...
And we don't want to put that fear into people.
No, but it's just, these are some things that, like, respect. It's just, it's a healthy respect, and it's also a respect of knowing that if you don't have these boundaries up, you could easily slip into a situation that you were not expecting.
Right. That's right.
Which is our story. So,
That's right.
so just to start off, I have a question for you. So, do you I did a little research.
That you did not tell me.
I did a little research. I did some research on the internet.
On the intranet.
Do you happen to know the top places that affairs begin? Can you think of, what would you think would be the first place?
Gym.
No.
Work.
Dang,
I should have said work.
85%.
85. I almost said work. Can we stop and start over?
Nope. But
See, y'all
gym is number 2.
The gym.
The gym is number 2. Number 3.
Oh, it was number 2.
Come
okay,
on.
hold on. All
You
right,
should be
work,
able to get the top 3.
Gym. Oh. Work, gym. I was going to say church, but that's not right.
It's on the list.
Is it really?
Absolutely.
Okay, work, gym. I don't know.
Social media.
So, that's not a place. I was thinking like a building.
It is.
Yeah,
it's
it
the
is.
virtual world.
That's true.
It is
Social
definitely
media.
a place.
Yeah, I should have done that.
So I got the top 6. The top
Okay.
6 are work, gym, social media, through a social circle. So like friends,
Sure.
somebody that's already a friend. The 5th one was a little interesting, but I can see it. It's volunteering together. So somebody that actually bonds, bond with
That's
over
because you
a
have
common,
a heart for something that somebody
cause.
else does.
Yep. And then the 6th one was church.
Church, really.
And a lot of that, I think, and that's because of the vulnerability that might take place. I mean, that's why you hear of so many pastors and, getting into situations like that, because there's this vulnerability and sharing. And
I've heard youth pastors say, don't pray with your girlfriend.
Yeah.
Because it's just intimate.
That's right. It's an intimacy.
And you get in a place to where, like you said it, vulnerable, where you're just sharing your deepest hurts and deepest concerns, and then it connects you to them.
Yep. All right, so, obviously we have mentioned that kind of the focus, we've got to kind of narrow down our focus. There's no way we could just talk about this forever and ever, but our focus would be when you're trying to set some boundaries and you're protecting yourself and you're protecting your marriage, then the first place you're going to start is what are you going to do? What boundaries are you going to have in place with members of the opposite sex? So let's just go through and just kind of tell some of our boundaries and just some of the boundaries that we know are super important in that area. And like, these are things that I would say, if you're getting dangerously close to one of these and you think, oh, it's no big deal, you should consider. I mean, these are things it's not like, we have big, massive, extreme boundaries because we have walked through infidelity, but we also are telling you this because if these things had been in place, then we may not have been in the situation that we were in.
Can I give an example that maybe will help explain this a little bit? We walked with a couple who the husband dealt with pornography. Okay, we walked through that with how to get through that, how to work through that, boundaries that you can put in place. Well, one of their boundaries that they came up with is he did not work on his computer unless he was in the kitchen or in the den with her, and he put a password on it. Nope. He had her put a password on it so that he couldn't get on the computer unless she put in the password, and she was right there and could look over his shoulder at any point. She was cooking, whatever, cleaning, folding clothes, and he's right there working on his computer. Well, do we expect everybody to tell their wife to put a password on their computer? No. But if you might hear that and go, okay, well, what is something that I could do, not that extreme, that I could put into place as a boundary so that I'm not tempted in that area? For example, don't use your computer in your bedroom when you're in there by yourself. Always use your computer in the family room. That's not extreme, but hearing an extreme one might get you thinking, what would be a good way that I could put a little boundary in my life so that I don't get sucked into that situation?
Yeah.
Was that a good example?
Yeah, that was a great example. So while we're there, why don't we just talk for a minute about phones, computers, tablets, that kind of thing. So
never have a password that your spouse does not know.
100%.
That's not, I mean, why? Why would you have no? If you need a password because of your kids not getting on your phone or something like that, I mean, you don't even have a password. Actually, I don't either. Now that there's Face ID, people may not put as many
I think we do have them, but I have one, but ours is the same.
Yeah,
my password's the same.
Let's not tell them because they might want it. but that's right.
The reason why, and I didn't have one forever and ever, but then it got to a point where there's so much stuff in my phone that if I lost my phone, I wouldn't want somebody to be, I mean, I'm not going to tell everybody on the air what all's on my phone as far as, but But I think that that's a key one. Like, you shouldn't have a password that your spouse doesn't know. When we went to our marriage intensive 10 years ago, it was if you haven't heard us talk about the marriage intensive, for a week, we were in a counseling situation where there were two counselors, a man and a woman, and then it was us and 4 other couples. Everybody a wreck, kind of last ditch effort to save their marriage, that sort of thing. And there was a couple in there that, the wife had a password on her phone, and we talked about it in the group, and she absolutely refused. She was like, and she just couldn't do it. She said, "There's no way. That is my life. That's my privacy. He doesn't need." And we both said, I mean, even in the midst of everything we were going through, we were like, "No way they'll make it."
Nope.
And I don't think they did. But anyway, so that's a big one. Like, just everything needs to be in the open. If you have stuff on your phone or computer or tablet that you're hiding, that's a red flag. Like, there shouldn't be anything that you're, like, if your spouse walked in and saw you, no matter what, whether it was who you were texting, what you were looking at, and you were scared or embarrassed or afraid that they might have seen it, then it's wrong.
Right. And this doesn't mean that you should go and get your spouse's phone and scroll through it and read everything. I mean, you could, but it gives the impression of, I don't trust you, so let me see what you're up to, But when you put a password on it, you're saying, I have something to hide from you.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you have a password they don't know, it's and so of course your spouse is going to be curious, and they're going to think, well, gosh, what does she have on there? What does he have on there that he doesn't want me to see? So in putting a password on it, it's kind of sus.
Yep. Well, let's roll this right into members of the opposite sex. So how should you handle texting, social media, phone calls with people of the opposite sex?
How do I handle it? As a general rule, I do not text men unless I have you or their spouse in the text thread. I, like my very best friend, I have to text her husband sometimes about eBay questions. Well, I just put her in them. And she doesn't care. She knows why I do it. She just ignores them. I mean, she reads them, but, she knows I'm not talking to her. But it's just security. It's respecting her, because I'm saying I'm texting your husband about something. So here it is. And I'm also respecting you by not texting another man.
I think that, and I do the same thing. There's some hard parts of this because of work and the different jobs and stuff. And I know you're in that situation too sometime, because you're a teacher, and I know sometimes dads are having to text you, or male teachers, and that's just part of it. Same with me. There's people that are trying to, register their kids for soccer, and, a mom will call or text or whatever. And it's, first of all, it's uncomfortable every time. Like, it really is.
Sure.
Although I'm not accusing or blaming. I mean, that's just how people communicate these days.
Yeah.
But if I ever get to a point where it's not uncomfortable, then and I don't have some sort of a check in my spirit, then there's something wrong.
Yeah.
So our encouragement to you would be, as best you can, always include someone else, include your spouse, include someone else in the conversation, if it's a text.
Like if I had to text a coworker about something that's a male, I could just put in another coworker. That's not as weird as putting in my husband.
Right.
Like if I texted a male coworker, I could just put in another coworker and say, what do y'all think about this? Just somebody else, some accountability. And I would say, when you find yourself in situations like the soccer registration or the dad that texts about something, as long as it's A-B conversation, like that we've talked about, what number is homework, whatever, when's it due, or what practice is what time. Those are direct questions and direct answers. I don't get really uncomfortable about that. But if it were ever to shift into something else, how was your day? We have a problem.
Yeah. And I would even say, if there's a couple out there that's listening and you've been through something traumatic and there are trust issues, instead of the whole, grabbing their phone every night and saying, let me look at what's been happening today. Maybe it is that you've set these boundaries and you've said, hey, we're not going to text or call or communicate with members of the opposite sex alone, and we, there is the realization that it may happen work-related, that kind of thing. And maybe you just kind of agree as you're healing and you're learning that you sit down together at night and you're just like, hey, I just wanted you to know this text came through. So instead of like, oh gosh, I better delete it. I mean, this person asked me a question and it's a girl and I should delete it. So instead of doing that, you just, out of respect, you say, hey, I want you to know I got this text today and this is the way I answered it. That's the end of it.
Yep.
It's just everything being above board. And social media is such a huge one because, you can just get sucked into, looking at stuff
An instant message.
Yes, and
nobody
that's
sees
right.
that,
Nobody's seeing that, and you're thinking, well, my spouse is not going to go through. And I'll be honest. I mean, even when you guys reach out to us as a couple, we're very careful about responding. And so, if it's a female, we try for Heather to respond to a female. If it's a male, I try to respond. And if for whatever reason it's been several days and Heather hasn't had time, if I respond, you won't know that it's me. Like, I won't respond to it as if it's me. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's coming from us.
Right.
Because we don't ever want there to be an emotional connection between a guy and you or a girl and me. And so,
and that account goes to both of our phones.
Right.
And both of our computers.
Yeah,
so
we can look
see,
at it at any time, but it's just, it's just, I mean, we want y'all to know we listen to we read everything, we respond to everything, but we're even careful, really careful about the way that we respond.
Because there are times where, because a lot of, for some reason, like I'm the one that was unfaithful, but a lot of the people that reach out to us, maybe it was the man that was unfaithful. And I can relate more to him because I was in his shoes and I need to speak some hard truth to him. But it's always, you're there, you're reading it, that type of thing.
I would just say for situations, I mean, gosh, we're
yeah, that's bad. We're on one boundary.
But as far as social, the digital stuff, just be extreme and be extreme because what's it going to hurt?
Yeah.
Like, be extreme.
Yeah.
The other one, seems like it would be obvious, but it's just not for a lot of people. But don't ever be alone with a member of the opposite sex. And
in the car.
That's right.
At lunch.
Yes. And I mean, you tell a story a lot about not going to the coffee pot.
Don't go to the coffee pot.
Yep. And
if you are going to the coffee pot at your office because you know so-and-so's going to be there and they always give you a compliment or they always look at your butt or whatever, You always are going to be affirmed because that person's there. Quit going to the coffee pot.
Yep. And this is one of those that I just think you just have to draw a line and say, I am never going to be alone with someone from the opposite sex. And look, I know that there's weird situations that happen at work, and you may be in a situation at work where you're like, well, I can't. There's, this is something, well, your spouse needs to be so involved in what's going on. I mean, they need to be comfortable
Leave the door
and know
open if
everything. Yeah.
If it's an office situation.
We were on vacation a couple of weeks ago, and before school started back, and we were up in Louisville, Kentucky, and we were eating at a restaurant. It was just our family, and we were eating brunch, and before we were leaving to go to another town, and I saw a couple. And it was very clear that they were having a work session of some sort, but they were having having this brunch together. And it made me uncomfortable because I knew that they were just there working together. They had their, one of them had their computer out or whatever. And I'm not saying that anything inappropriate went on, but because sometimes you may have to travel with a member of the opposite sex. Those situations, if I could look into their life, what I would have hoped happened would have been they came separately, met there, they had their meeting
in a public
place,
sure.
Which I get it, and then they left separately, different cars, even if they were going back the same place. Those are just the kind of things that you put those boundaries up, and you don't, just no excuses. And I know people can say, oh, well, I'm in this situation. Well, if it is, and if it's something that you just cannot avoid, your spouse just needs to be all over it.
Right.
Knows everything.
Yep. Okay. I'm not going to tell that story because we're still on this one thing.
Yeah.
It was a good one, though. Well, I'll tell it another time.
You can tell it?
No. Okay, I'll tell it. So I'll never forget, our pastor told us this. He was not our current pastor, our old pastor. He was driving home. He passed a church member, a lady, all by herself on the side of the road. Car was broken down. It was pouring down rain. He stopped, let her take his car.
Yep.
And went home, got her husband. They brought his car back because he didn't want to ride with her in the car.
Yep.
He said, somebody would have seen us and been like, why are they in the car together? I wonder where they're going. It's just, and somebody just turned us off because they were like, good Lord, that's extreme. But it's not.
Well, the reason why I don't feel, as I was thinking about what we were going to talk about, I was like, people might think that we're crazy when we're saying some of this stuff. But here's the thing. There's a lot of people that can say this stuff, and you can look at them and go, that's crazy. We walked through it.
Yep.
And so if you just don't want to listen to what we have to say,
you don't have to.
That's okay. But we're just trying to say these are things that we should have had in place. And if we had these in place, we would not have gotten in the situation. Right. You wouldn't have been in the situation that you were in if we had the boundaries in place.
That's right.
So, look, again, we say this all the time. It's our story. You can say whatever you want to. We're not being cocky, but we lived it.
And you can't argue with the fact that our boundaries make both of us exceedingly happy and both of us very trustworthy in each other's eyes.
Yep, definitely. So with members of the opposite sex, obviously this is a no-brainer, but no flirting. Even if you try to pull that bull about it's my personality, I'm just such a friendly, well, great, be friendly to girls, but don't be, and I'm not telling you to be a jerk to the members of the opposite sex, but there's no reason for flirting. And if you're just trying to get attention by being funny and sweet and whatever, and we've told this story too, but one time when we were going through the mess that we were going through, you told me one time, you said, people, some of your girls think that I don't like them because of the way that I treat them. And maybe I was being way too extreme, but even the no frontal hugs, if you're going to hug somebody, hug them from the side. But I did, yes, I probably did take it even more to an extreme because I just was never going to be put in a position where it felt like I was flirting with somebody or was taking what they were flirting with me and receiving it and running with it. So, but anyway, that's a big one. I mean, that one seems like a no-brainer, but good grief. People do it and they don't think, don't think they're doing it.
Or they just think it's a little innocent thing just for fun.
Yeah.
And it's not.
Obviously, the conversations that you have with members of the opposite sex, like you should never complain about your spouse to a member of the opposite sex. You should never share deep emotional anything.
If you ever say, "Oh gosh, my spouse would never let me talk to them about this," there's a problem.
Yeah, yeah.
You don't talk to people about things and make it and justify it because your spouse doesn't like to listen to it. Even if it's at work, like you're talking about somebody, like not a patient, but like a situation at work, and you're like, well, I wouldn't tell my spouse this because they don't even know them. They wouldn't care. But yet you're having a deep conversation with somebody else at your office about them. It's not okay.
Mm-hmm. Can you think of anything else like that goes along? I've got a couple more things, but they kind of tilt away from the whole inappropriate relationship kind of thing. So they're just other boundaries.
No, I think those are good.
Those were good.
Yeah. If I think of another one, I'll let you know.
Okay. Well, the other couple of things that I was just thinking about was, a big one. Don't be places you're not supposed to be. Like, don't put yourself in situations, and this may not even necessarily be member of the opposite sex, but like, if you have problems with alcohol, then don't go to a bar. I mean, don't put yourself in positions that are going to compromise. So put those boundaries up.
If you like to eat a lot of sugar, don't go to Crumble Cookie.
Yeah.
Holy moly, that place. Woo, we went there for the first time.
Yeah.
It was really good. Okay, sorry.
So that one's a big one. Don't go somewhere you shouldn't go. Especially if you have a problem with whatever it is. And then, travel is a big one because I travel. I mean, we have to travel sometimes by ourselves. We've got a kid that's in college, and so, we go at separate times and stuff. And I'm going to tell you, I like this, not even thinking about it, but I can't even remember the last time I turned on a television in a hotel room. And I know we have cell phones, and you can still look at cell phones and stuff like that. But, there's just something about, just boundaries. Like, I've heard of pastors, not even pastors, but I did hear a pastor say one time that he unplugged. I mean, I think it's Craig Rochelle says he unplugs the TV when he goes and travels. Like the last time when I was up there this past week, helping Luke move into college, I was like, I didn't turn on TV. Like, I never. So
it wasn't football season though.
Well, that is true. I definitely
a little ESPN action will get you.
That. There you go.
Just put it on ESPN and don't change the channel.
Yeah, that's true. But no, I just think that making sure that your spouse knows where you are all the time. Again, it's not a smothering thing. No, it's just a respect. And we've shared this before, but for the longest, and Heather will still do it from time to time, but she'll take a picture of where she is and send it to me so that
here, let me take a picture of the building, but I try to do it in a fun way where I put myself in it or who I'm with and saying, having fun, still here, sorry we're late, something like that.
For a long time, I mean, maybe even a couple of years after everything happened, you would do that knowing that you needed to show me where you were, for me to learn to trust you again. But, even now it's just, hey, I've been gone for a while, and, I'm somewhere where I'm normally not going to be, so I need to make sure that, my spouse knows that I am where I say I'm going to be.
Was that your last one?
Yeah, pretty much.
Are we out of time?
Close.
Okay. Are you ready?
Yep,
I'm throwing you do this to me all the time. You'll say, I'm going to throw one your way, and I have no idea. Well, I'm throwing one back at you, baby.
Oh boy.
You ready?
Oh, boy. So I'm fixing to have to answer something?
My best friend is a boy.
Oh, yeah. That's baloney. Right?
There are people out there that will argue you up and down, Rusty, that it's easier to be friends, especially girls. Girls love to say this. Girls are so dramatic, so all my best friends are boys.
And I get that. And here's what I would have to say to that. If that's the case, then you should have stayed single. Because Wait, you don't?
No, I just thought that was funny how you said it.
Well, because once you get married,
Mm-hmm.
that's your spouse's role.
Yep.
And I know that the spouse is going to fail you and let you down and not meet all those needs, but that's your covenant relationship and your covenant commitment to your spouse. And, you know, I'm just telling you, if you say that the guy is or a member of the opposite sex is your best friend, let me just say you're playing with fire.
Mm-hmm. That's
and
right.
you may think it's innocent, and your spouse may
Yep.
even agree and think it's innocent.
You can say,
give it time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm just
Preach
look,
it.
and I'm praying,
Preach.
and I'm
Preach.
praying that you're not one of the ones that would fall into that.
That's right.
If,
Me?
No, no. Whoever is out there going, oh well, my
Yeah,
best friend's a
that's
member of the
right.
opposite sex. I'm praying that you would not be one of those that would fall into that. But I'm also telling you,
Mm-hmm.
as someone that has lived through the worst of worst, run from that.
That's right. No relationship is more important than the relationship with your spouse.
That's right.
You got to give it up.
Yep.
You got to give it, or be friends with couple friends.
And that's if your spouse is comfortable with that.
That's right.
Because
Sure.
there's a lot of
Sure.
situations that happen where there may be a relationship with somebody of the opposite sex, and your spouse isn't real comfortable with it, and you keep trying to convince them, no, but they're just friends. They're just friends. Maybe we could be friends together
That's
with their
right.
spouse, with the spouse too, as a couple. And if your spouse says, oh, heck no, I don't
Red
feel
flag.
comfortable, then done.
Done.
Like done.
Done.
Yep.
Done.
And look, we've counseled a lot of couples and talked to a lot of couples where this was the very issue, and they've done they have followed our suggestion, strong,
Heeded the wording.
strong suggestion, and I would say that they would now say it was the right thing to do.
Absolutely. And not only that, but would come back and say, I didn't realize
Yep.
how dependent I had been on that other friend and what it was taking away.
Takes away from your
my
spouse.
relationship
Because
with my spouse.
once you get rid of that relationship and put all your energy and focus, then that part, your marriage improves.
Yep. And you don't see it until you step away from it.
Hey, I don't know if y'all know this or not, but we're pretty passionate about this
I know.
subject.
I probably got a little loud on some of it.
But I'm gonna
Don't go to the coffee pot.
Look, we've had people even on this very day that have told us, thank you for speaking truth and not sugarcoating stuff with us. If you want somebody to make you feel good and just be sugarcoated about everything, then, I mean,
This ain't it.
This is not it. We're going to tell you like it is. That's how we live our life. So I hope we weren't too hard,
I
though.
know.
But,
What
hey,
if our-
we love
what
y'all.
What if our followers go down after today?
Hey, we're going to, you know what? We had a message.
That's
we
right.
believed that this is what God was telling us to share. We're going to
That's right.
trust God, and we're going to believe that actually, you know, if it matters to one person, then
That's
it
right.
was worth it.
The narrow path.
That's right. But we believe that God's going to honor what we had to say today. So, all right, we're going to sign off because we went a little over what we normally do, but we had to talk about it. So we'll see you guys next week. We enjoyed being with you. Make sure you go and follow us, rate us, review us. That would be a great thing to help us out. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.